at me. Fantastic. How's the workshop? Kuna kitu umesikia ama ulikuwa unasikia njaa? That's also important. Please tell your neighbor one thing that they had if you were at the workshop. If you are not, just get to know them. Yeah. Stop looking at me. I can't know all of you. Know your neighbor. My neighbor. My neighbor. All right, fantastic. We'd like to welcome you to the Harvest Conversations. Let's make some noise for the Harvest Conversations. Fantastic, fantastic. For those who are new, this is something we do every harvest year, where we just have conversations. And today, tell your neighbor today, we're having a very interesting conversation, and we're talking about rewriting our stories. We are talking about re-navigating our stories. And with me, I have a fire panel. Let's make some noise for this fire panel. Fantastic. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting with the lady on the extreme end.
Hi, guys. My name is Nyambura Marira, and I happen to be a member of this church, and I serve in the praise and worship team. Glad to be here.
Hi guys, praise God. It's Shiloh or Shiloh? Shiloh or Shiloh? Shiloh, eh? Hii mambo ya Shiloh ushamba nipeleke hiyo side nyingine ya highway, eh? My name is Ben Psycho. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a musician, I'm a podcaster, and a content creator. Yeah, my wife is looking at me badly. I'm married to one wife, who's a lady. She's right here, Wanjiru.
Yeah. For sure. Hi guys, my name is Brian Moshigadi. I'm happy to be here. I go to church here.
All right, fantastic. And for those who don't know me, my name is Wai Terero Kemani, and I'm so excited to be, I'm very honored. Nasikia nimenyeha just to be here in the presence of these greats. All right, so we're talking about rewriting our stories. We're talking about re-navigating what we thought the story would end up and where we are. Are we together? So I'm going to give our panelists each a chance, and I want them to tell us a little bit of their story. Tell us, just before we go there, I'd like to be assisted with a sound that is coming in from the drums. Like a drum sound. Fantastic. So we're going to start with Pastor Brian. You're going to tell us a little bit about your story. Kwenye ambako Mungu amekutoa, Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Na pale ambapo umefika sasa. In summary, or in the shorter version.
Thanks so much. Tumeuona mkono wake Bwana, matendo yake Bwana ni makuu mno. Ametutoa mbali, katushika mkono mahali aliona pekee tu. Chini. Right. Where does my story begin? Let me try and pick it from. Been around for a couple of years around the earth. Just chilling, cooling. Been a member of this church all my life, born and raised here. Now I serve here full time since 2017 March. But before that, I went to school. Yeah. All my life, all my years, if anybody ever told me I would end up being a pastor, let me tell you, it would be a lie. Even though I had, since like primary school, there's some people, we are a cell church. I went to, we're in a cell with some people who were here when I was young, when I was like in primary school. And we had people who would call me, my mom, they used to call my mom Mama Pastor. So Pastor ni nani? Ilikuwa mimi, nikiwa mdogo. But it never really clicked. So, in primary school, I went to boarding school in class 7 and 8. Guys used to call me Bishop. And it also still never clicked. And then I went to campus. Campus hakuna mtu alikuwa ananiita pastor ama bishop. Mambo ni mingi, masaa tu ndio machache. A story for another day. In high school also, ilikuwa tu mambo nyingi wewe. Nilikuwa nimeokoka nikiwa high school. When I went to campus, I went and studied environmental science. And the rest is really much history. It's like in the history, it's in the back of my story. Like, I think I practiced for only a year, and then I left. And then got here. So now I'm in full-time ministry, the last 6 years, going on 7 in March, by the grace of God. And, you know, E.t.c and other short stories. And that's just, I think, the summary, just to go over what my life has been in with regard to what I went to school to do and what I've been doing and what I'm doing right now. Yeah, in a nutshell.
All right. Let's hear. I have some questions, but let's hear Ben's version of events.
Yeah, man. It's a lot of pressure coming after the Archbishop. The apostle. My name is Ben. Grew up. Now, where do I start this story? How far back should I go?
If you remember, like,
yeah,
the womb stories.
Okay, I grew up in a place called Riruta Satellite. To be specific, Wanye Road. Yeah, when you homeboy, yeah. Wanye Road, Mazee, your place ilikuwa gangster. Finished primary school, went to Upper Hill School. I really wanted to be a neurosurgeon at that time because I thought it had a lot of money, you know. I was just doing the math, like there are only 8 neurosurgeons in this country. So if I'm the 9th, I mean, I can ask so much money, you know. I'm like, yo, kichwas funguika, yo deposit ajari, you know. So I really, for me it was just about the money. I always used to look at which careers which have money. And I really chopped hard for that stuff. Went to Upper Hill. Upper Hill was an easy school. Yes, people focus more on school, but it was more of the arts. I never thought I could sing at all until now. Sasa unajua Upper Hill, because you want to go to State House Girls, the only way to go there is to join choir. So I was like, you know, if that's the only way I'm gonna go for funkies, let me try and sing. So, which is very interesting, and how God has a sense of humor, you know. So me I joined funky because I just wanted to go for music fairs, maze to meet mademo wa cabs, mademo wa state. Alafu unajua kuna venye yani wale maboy imba kwa funky, mademo wanakuanga wamekongojea pale chini. Sasa wao wengine wakijaribu kujitetea, ati sijui hobby zangu ni kusikiza reggae. Ati sijui inaweza break dance. That is, you know, when umetoka kuimba, you don't talk much, you know. It's like an audition. So wewe umetoka wapi, you know. So I went to Upper Hill. Cleared high school, but also after high school I wanted to be, which is the job that I had the most money, is being a CEO. In fact, at that time they had done a poll. The highest paid CEO was PricewaterhouseCoopers, and for you to join PricewaterhouseCoopers, you had to be an accountant. So I really wanted to be an accountant, so that I joined PwC, climb up the ranks, go become the richest man. And then funny enough, I finished school. I've really loved this music thing, started doing music. I was in a boy band called Christ Psychos. You guys remember Christ Psychos? Yeah, I was in a group called Christ Psychos. We sang together all the way until like 2015. And also, they also felt like they wanted to venture into other things. So I also had to go solo. Started from scratch again now, because now as a solo artist, it's like you have to prove yourself again. Started over there. Music was just so hard, my God. That was 2016. Did music all the way until now. I started dating this beautiful girl, Wanjiro. Yeah. So Wanjiro used to have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel started doing better than my music. So I was like, guy, kwani unipendi, you know? So I was like, maybe you can give me snippets. Nikuwe naingia once in a while, you know, like a guest political scientist, you know? And then I would go there once in a while. Our chemistry was really nice on the YouTube channel. And we got married in 2021. Then we thought, you know, maybe we can just start a podcast, me and her. Before that, I had already done my own podcast for 1 year. It had such bad sound, my God. It was just crazy. Like ile episode nilikuwa nasomewa. Kwani wewe ulaningi? Kwani cheki? Si usave ununue hata nini recorder. Like it was just lectures upon lectures. And God has been faithful. The rest is history. Yeah.
All right, Nyambura.
Grew up in Limuru, a place called Uplands. That was primary school. Then went to high school. Then went to Daystar University for my degree, and I studied community development. That decision came about because my dad had been in the NGO world for very many years. And you know, in our time, it was, even now, it's hard for people to decide, you know, what do you want to do? But that's what I fell upon. Even though going into university, I was struggling between communications and community development. But penye nilichukulia community development, we one day went to KTN and they did those, the way they show you kwenye watu wanasomea news. Nilijiangalia uso venye yangu ilikuwa inakaa hiyo time, niko hii Wakenya hawatakubali. Hizi dark spots ni mob! So I took community development, graduated, did internship, then after that I just felt this is not something I wanted. I just took it for the money because my dad is in the NGO world and he travels a lot. So I went to my folks, told them, yo, ndio hii degree, mi nataka kufanya music. Nikawapatia degree, wakasema uko sure? Yes. Ndo mimi hao, I told them I'll look for the school, so I looked for a school for music, went and got one in Hollywood, in USA, so nikachukua virago nikaenda Hollywood. Nikasoma music for 2 years. In my head I was like, narudi Kenya, the biggest star, hakuna mtu atanishika. Came back, getting into the industry was hard. It was really hard, and I gave up. And mind you, I had come even with a studio. Nilikuwa na studio, set up, nimekuja na vitu. I was like, this is my thing. But I gave up. After that, nika decide, you know what? Chinese language. Kuna scholarships zinapeanwa za China. Nikaachana na music. Went to Nairobi University, signed up for a course for Chinese. They had a competition. Remember, I did music, so I sing, I love singing. Nikaimba na Chinese, nikaambua, hey, tuko na scholarship ya kwenda China, masters. Ndo mi huyo nikaichukua virago China. Studied Chinese, masters, and I was to come back and be a teacher of Chinese here. Which, in my head, I was totally hating Niko. Mi na kurukaruka kwangu, nitaweza kukaa kwa class 8 to 5, surely, siwezi. So I took up a makeup course so that when I come back on weekends, nitafanya maharusi makeup. So I took up the course there, and I told my teacher before I go back home, nikaona ameanza kufanya brows, permanent, it's called permanent makeup. Kama kuna term najua mmesikia ni microblading. So I told him, just make sure I get it before I go back home. Akanifunza, I came back to Kenya. So me, I knew hiyo ni kazi ya weekend. Na nika set up studio, weekend nitakuwa na nikaanza kutafuta kazi ya kufunza. I kept looking, I couldn't find. But I started marketing this side gig that I had. And within 2 months, I was fully booked. And so today, I call myself a permanent makeup trainer and artist. And I've been doing it 6 years running. Yes.
It's amazing to hear those stories. And for all of you, there was a point where there was a shift in your stories. I want us to go there, where you thought you were going in one way and you found yourself having to find another way. How did you deal with renavigating the thing you had in your mind versus the new direction that you were to take? It's open to anybody to go. We'll start with Archbishop.
Ba kwanza unasikimu wa Kenya za watu. Anyway, so when I went to school, I had 3 options when I cleared school, yeah? When I cleared high school, I wanted to, all my teachers used to think, this one will make a great journalist. Because first of all, I was always in the noisemaker list, always. I love to talk, it's what I do, yeah? That's my people in the back. Love to talk, love to, you know. Then there's those ones who thought I'd make a good lawyer because, you know, I talk also a lot and, you know, it's really hard to win an argument against me. If you know, you know in the house, yeah. And then I loved computers. When I was in Form 4, I did computers all the way. Kwa coder, men in tech. Yeah, then I always did love conservation. Najua, on the side too, always did love it. So one thing my mom thought, okay, I'll ask all the people, all her friends and people that she knows that are in those fields. So I had a sit down with all of those people, yeah. Nimemaliza shule, nika mmoja, nimeketi na lawyer. The first meeting with the lawyer, I was sure, kwanza alikuwa aitwa advocate. Nilimaliza no advocate. At the end of that lunch, I was like, I am 100% sure I'm not an advocate. And then I sat with, so my mom was a journalist for the longest time. Yeah, alikuwa shani discourage. Anambia, hapana, journalism kwa hii Kenya yetu. So I was like, okay, fine, maybe acha tuachane nayo. So I was left with IT and conservation. And I did an application to 2 universities. Hadi leo nangoja moja wanijibu hiyo ya IT sijaipata. So I just went with what came, yeah, because it was things I liked. On the other hand, I was always serving in church. All along, I was always serving in church. I served in the worship team, among many other places. But worship ministry was the entrance, or singing was my entry point into ministry here. So I continued to do it over and over again. So nilimaliza shule, nikamaliza kampo, fast forward, environmental science. Then ukimaliza shule unatafuta kazi. So that's what happened. So I started applying for jobs nini. I got some really good internships, some really nice gigs. I would work and be there. Then got some, unajua unashika tu pesa hapa after shule, unasikia vizuri. It was nice. But on the inside, there was always something. I cannot to this day describe it properly, but I always knew on the inside there's something more. There's something, it might not be more, but there's something different. I knew there was something different. So that's what I started to pursue. To throw myself into service more, nini. But all along I knew this full-time ministry thing is not for me. Actually, my biggest worry was I had seen a lot of the pastors of my day, and no shade to my pastors out there. I had seen a lot of the pastors. You know, the oversized suit, mabati, resin coat, zile suits in a shine, the white sharpshooters, nini, EV evangelical heels. Those ones, like I was like, yeah, no, this guy is better. Alafu nategewa tu washirika sasa naambia please akitoeni sadaka please oye aki please. That's what was in my head. So I knew I didn't want to do it. Actually, I always thought Mimi, kingdom, financial. Yeah, that's what I knew I was going to be. But I continued to work, and I worked in conservation for a couple of months. It wasn't giving what it's supposed to give. And then I just decided, okay, I got another opportunity to volunteer at some office doing projects management. So I went into doing project work with some faith-based organization. And I was there for about a year. Actually, just give or take, just a year. And even when I was there, I mean, I enjoyed the work that I was doing, but no. There was still something. I couldn't quite place my finger on it, but there was something happened that wasn't just right. And one day I went to a friend of mine's Rurashio, and while we were waiting, gate ifungulio. You know the corruption that happens at the gate with the Rurashio, with the women just pitisha 50 bob up and nini. While we were waiting for that kanini to end, my friend, whose Rurashio it was, asked me, but then what do you do these days? And that question is so stressful. I was just trying to figure out what I do these days. Unamaliza shule, unafanya nini siku hizi, ulipata job. So I started, and I told him I'm volunteering at some faith-based organization. He was like, do you like it? Do you enjoy it though? I was like, actually I don't. And he asked me, so are you there? I'm like, oh, because I feel very strongly against sleeping hungry and other short stories, you know. But that was a Saturday. I'd left the office on Friday. But to this day, I've never gone back to that office. That was the last. I was like, I'm not going back to that office again. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that because, I mean, there were no savings, there was no plan ahead, there was nothing. So I just stayed home. Then I stayed home for another like 5-6 months. And that was it. But I think for me, what I would say was the tipping point was that conversation, because I'd been feeling it, but somebody else asked me about it, and I was like, wait a minute. I actually have been running, and I don't know what this is. I don't know, and I don't understand it fully. I just know that there's something more, there's something different, and it's not conservation, and it's not in projects, or whatever else I'll try to get into. It just might be ministry, and I don't know how to get into it, but the first step, at least I know, is to leave what I'm doing. So I think that conversation was it for me. And yeah, it's another long story into now how I got into it. But just to answer the question, I think that's where yeah.
All right. Let's have Ben.
What was the question again?
Thank you so much. All that is to say. Wanted to know, the way you've told us about your life. Ukaingia mziki, Christ cycles, ikabidi uwe Ben cycle sasa. Alafu Ben cycle, wakapatana na Wanjiru, ikabidi mambo. So I think you've had shifts twice.
Yes.
So how did you navigate that? What made you decide to pursue Ben cycle? And then what encouraged you to pursue the Joyride?
I'd say it's normally a very strong conviction that God puts in your heart. It's a thing you feel strongly, and you have to do it against all currents. And when you do other things, it doesn't necessarily give you satisfaction. So by the time I'm still doing music, First of all, so after I went to campus, I did political science. But I was so sure I was never gonna study. I was never gonna practice. Like me sikuji kwa TV kuambia kama ni Azimio ama ni UDA inaenda ndani. That was not my portion. So what happened is I continued doing music. And you see at this time when I'm doing music, people are starting to get jobs. So people are starting to live a bit better. People are buying cars. Like buying cars is like, hey, unheard of, man. Like your time, una struggle to get fare, at least manyanga, Some of you don't know that struggle. Kuna hongana saa zuri alafu saa kuna manyanga. Yeah. So I used to feel like my life is so behind, But on the inside I feel like God wants me to do this music thing, and He doesn't want me to do secular. He wants me to do gospel, which is even more painful. So, yeah, because you see, with secular, it's a bit. People have dubious ways of making money, getting money. At that time, I have a picture when we took myself, Nadia Mukami, Otile Brown. We had gone for a show called Jalango with the Money. And like a few months after that, those guys blew up, man. Like I remember meeting Otile, he was in a Beamer, man. I'm like, yo, God, what am I really doing here, And there's just a powerful force that pushes you to do that thing. So that's when I still continue doing music. And some of these transitions are not optional. It's not like you choose, you say like, okay, this is the one. It's like God gives you, no, of these three, choose one, It's me being a solo artist was the only option because the other guys felt like they wanted to venture into other things, and I had to respect that, And so that was just for me to do, and I felt so disappointed. I felt like I was starting from scratch. I felt so behind in life. I was a guy who grew up with so many big dreams. I wanted to live well, drive a big car. I love cars, man, I wanted to buy the good clothes, have the nice gadgets, and I felt like at some point maybe I should just give up all that stuff and start dreaming, just start lowering my dream a bit more. Then when we start doing the podcast, first, there's another story I haven't told you. Because of the struggles of music, I decided to go get a job. So I applied at an agency called Mo Sound. Now, at this time, Mo Sound, they're setting up a radio station, and they're like, I feel like you'd be best placed to come help us with digital, because we've seen you and your wife do some digital things. That radio station is called NRG. So when I went to NRG, I actually thought I'd be given like a host, like to host, At that point, I was like, kama ni gospel ama secular. I mean, niko tu ready kuomoka, They denied me the opportunity. So I was the guy interviewing, doing interviews for the presenters as they go for their interviews. So they say, hey man, this guy is so good at what he's doing. Why can't he be given a show on air? But they denied me completely. So I started doing digital for them. And I was in the commercial department. So my work was, when we go talk to clients to come advertise at NRG. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning this part, because I used to feel so embarrassed that now I'm working with my fans, like it's somebody, I meet somebody and they say they love my music, but we're in the same office. So of course they see pia mimi I'm under the same system, Kama mnasomewa na HR, mnasomewa nyi wote, akisubscribe, So I used to feel so embarrassed. I used just to feel so bad. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning this commercial thing, because later on now I started doing podcasts, and like now in life, I have so many contacts for people in corporate. But these people, I met them when I was still working at NRG. So other musicians come ask me, I'd like to meet this client. I'm like, this client, we worked with her like 5 years ago. So those transitions were not easy. They were very, I'd say even demoralizing. Felt like it was a huge step back, but God has a sense of humor. Yeah.
And I think for what he said transitions are not optional, number one. But I don't think God makes you go through anything just for the sake of it. That's what he's saying. There are people that, when he was feeling low and going to those same people now are the connections that he has based on that point. So perhaps you're in a place where you feel so low, it's not for the sake. Nothing is for the sake. God knows what he's doing, even in your moments, in your valleys. Yeah. True or true? True. Nyambura.
He's spoken and taken me back. Rudia swali, madam. Nisi digress.
It is well. No, it is well.
Yeah.
And we have tissues for you.
Yes.
Thank you. So we're talking about transitions.
Right.
How were you able to navigate? Now you've done your degree, and here you are. First of all, you've transited thrice. So here you are, the first time. You're like, I want to do music and follow my passions. Then you come, music inauma nje. Then you're like, I'm going to go and study Chinese to go to China. Ndio nirudi niomoke. Then you're inauma nje. So how are you able to navigate that kind of transition?
I think I have had two types of transitions, if I would put it. There are transitions where, like he said, you have no choice, but it works out. And there are those that just align themselves. When I took up Chinese, I think I was just looking for something else that I can do, which is interesting to me. So I was like, this is a new language. I don't mind doing it. And so I went for it, and they had scholarships. So for me, that was a transition, trying to get away from something I totally, like, I've tried music, it's not working. And kwanza umetoka majuu, naambia watu umetoka Hollywood. What do you have to show? So for me, it was like, I really need to run away and get something that works for me. But now when it comes to transitioning from Chinese to now permanent makeup, and hiyo tu ni God, if I would say that God sometimes just aligns things, because what I do now, as much as I enjoy singing, I would say university, and especially university, what I studied, I didn't like. And I didn't want to become a teacher. But with singing and this makeup, I am home with it. My heart is at home with it. So there's some shifts that could happen when a shift is happening and you're home with it, your heart is at home with it. Whatever you're going to pursue, like you can wake up every day, even if you're not being paid. That's something I feel is a shift that falls so well in your heart and you have no doubts about it. And sometimes, why I got emotional when we were speaking about his hard times, when I was in China, I felt really sick, like really sick. And I was diagnosed with a chronic condition. So my folks would send me money, like all the time. Naambia niko hosi, too many pesa za dawa. So they would send money all the time. So when I was about to graduate, forgive me. When I was about to graduate, what this brought for me. When I was about to graduate, I kept praying and asking God, I'm going back to Kenya, and if there's people I really felt for was my folks. I was like, I'll go back to Kenya. This is a chronic condition, and they're going to be paying the hospital bills every time. So I remember praying and telling God, whatever I go back to do in Kenya, may it sustain me enough that I will be able to pay my own medical bills if it is required. So I took up the makeup course as a sideline, just like I said, so that I do it on weekends. And within 2 months, when I was fully booked and I was getting money, I looked back and I was like, wow, God. Because remember, when I came from the US for music, my mom used to give me money for gas, fuel, gari, Evie, sina chochote. But now I come back and I'm able to pay my hospital bills. So for me, that's a shift that aligned so well. And still, it's something that would wake me up every day. Even before I got those clients for fully booking, mi nilikuwa naamka naenda kwa studio yangu. Niko hapo nishajifanya makeup, napanga vitu zangu the whole day. Like, it's something I'm waking up to do. So I think that's the experience I would give about my shift. Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's encourage her. Fantastic. So maybe if we could talk about the process, the handling the delays, because there have been delays, there have been seasons of nothing. How are you able to navigate those delays, and what could you say kept you grounded in those seasons? We'll start with you, Ben.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what kept me going, to be honest, God's Spirit really gives you energy. But there's a story that I read one time in the Bible, and I had not looked at it the way I looked at it at that time. And it's the story of David, one of the greatest kings to ever exist. David is anointed to be the king, but God doesn't take him to the palace. He takes him back to take care of sheep. And between the time David is anointed king and the time he actually becomes king, there were years. Like David went through so much drama. I feel like his life was just full of drama. At one point, David had to go live in another country as a madman because Saul wants to kill him. If he goes to this country as a king, they'll kill him. So he was dirty. He had to kama anamwaga mate, anajiongelesha. So like, huwezi kuwa David, mwanafanana tu. Zile picha za AI, unacheki zile picha za AI wasa wanashinda wakipost. Yeah. But when you see how when David got an opportunity to meet Goliath, he says that I have fought bears before, I've fought lions before. Every time they would come for the lamb that I'm taking care of. And you ask yourself, when you're a shepherd and then there's a lion that comes, do you really want to risk your life over one lamb? Nazitazana too, like next season. Like, I feel like that's much of a risk. And when you look at it, if you as the shepherd die, those sheep will have no one to take care of them. I mean, it's logical. But David was so, wisdom, right? With a double E. But you see, David was so diligent, being a good shepherd, and it's those skills that he was building slowly, that by the time he's meeting Goliath, he has the confidence to say, who is this uncircumcised Philistine who's scaring all of you guys, you see? And the thing about God is that God doesn't waste opportunities. And wherever God has put you, any position, even if you are working at, let's say, whatever job, maybe even in construction, there's something that God is doing, or that because you see, God is looking at it from outside. He's seen the whole picture. You've not seen the whole picture. So you feel like there's a delay, but everything is just falling into place the way he wants. The mistake a lot of people do is that we stop becoming serious or diligent because we feel like we are at lower spaces, and you want to start being hardworking and focused when you get that job that you want. But unfortunately, God works with promotion such that when you become faithful on this one, it takes you to the next one. And the thing is, if you miss some of these steps, you might get to your breakthrough, but without some muscles. So you also end up sabotaging the very beautiful thing that God has given you, you know? God has to work on you on some things. There's nothing as bad as God giving you a big break before you're ready for it, because you'll spoil it. And then now you'll go down, and it's so embarrassing when you unachapianga wase mtaa story mazemi kuna time nilikuwa na bima iko wapi gadhe sasa tuko hapa stage tunangoja squad tunangoja na zigi rudi. You see, it's super embarrassing, and that can't be your story. But when God has taken you through stages of life, he's revealed himself so many times and in so many different forms in your life, such that by the time he takes you to the palace, you end up being such a good king of the place that he's put you on. And that's the beauty about going through stages. And so even when you feel like the things are delaying, Habakkuk 2 says that even though the vision tarries, it shall surely come to pass. So God is just putting things in places. It's like the testimony you were giving me about Bishop and this land. When they came here, there were pigs, you know. So they were kicked out, they went back down there. God has a sense of humor that the first person they want to sell to is the first person they kicked out, you know? Yeah. So when you look at things from one dimension, you will fail it. And that's why you have to go through life with God. The beauty about being a Christian is not necessarily to die and go to heaven and get the mansion. That's cute, and we will all do that. Eh? The beauty about being a Christian is that God gives you foresight that he's not given other people of the world. And he gives you calmness and wisdom to maneuver all these things. Wow. Yeah.
Let's appreciate that. Fantastic. Maybe we could hear from you, Pastor Brian.
Just mega. Right. Navigating that delay. For me, I feel like what I would call the delay was, so I've left, I've stopped going where I used to go every morning, my 8 to 5, and now I am in the house without savings, without anything. And while I was in the house, I had a good time. I had a really good time for the first month, waking up whatever time I want, falling on my knees, I bow before the throne of mercy. I'd have such fire devotion because the wendi mahali, ata unaka usiku unaamka sweet hour of prayer at 3 or 4. Juna jua ata ukilala 6 ama 7, wendi mahali. But that lasted only, so long. Because after the first month, I'm like, yeah, I have bills. That my own personal bills. I wasn't paying for a house. I still to campo. So I mean, nataka kujinulia. Unataka tu kakoloni hivi tu kadio tu sinuke kama mjengo. I mean, na sasa uwezi anulikuwa ushatoka maisha ya kuomba mzazi do. And then on top of that, now I'm in the house. I'm like, okay, fine. Now, in that 1 month, I was very clear what I want to do. I was clear what God is calling me to do. I was clear that God is calling me into ministry. But then I was like, okay, so now what does ministry look like? What kind of ministry is God calling me into? Unasema niende kwa basi pale Kencom, niingie nianze kuambia ninalo neno la kutoka kwenyu mimi mwenzangu watu wa Mungu. Ama niende Jivanji na Biblia yangu nianze kuhubiri. I mean, I just wanted to know, if God had said do those things, I think I would have. But I just wanted to hear it. And it wasn't coming. And I stayed the second month and the third month. And as the months are going, the broke I was getting. I mean, I was already broke. It wasn't like I was coming from Kuna Pesa. I was already broke, but I mean, consider that there is a basement after the ground floor. Alafu unapata aya, kuna basement ya basement, like you go lower. And B2, B4, like, wow. I think that season for me, every time I think about it, is really, it's a lot. I actually don't talk about it a lot because, I mean, I learned lessons from it, but I know when we get to heaven, it's one of the conversations I'd like to have with my Lord and Savior. I'm just like, about that time, Lord, about that time, because there was so much uncertainty. And then that question kept coming. You meet with people, and people are just like, hey, where are you these days? I'm like, none of your business. You get angry, I don't think I handled the delay season well. Let me just say it that way. I don't think I handled it well. Because my response was so naturally left to myself, I'm very introverted. I keep to myself a lot. And that season helped me thrive in that introvertedness. So I kept myself even away from fellowship. I'd come to church, hutaki pia kuonekana kanisa kila wakati. So there are opportunities for me to serve, like, oh, there's something here, there's a mission here, there's a funeral here, there's something here. And you're being invited to go, but sitaki pia kuonekana sana. Watu wasinizoe waone nikaa sinanga kitu ya kufanya, hata kama sinanga, you know. So I just stay home. And the more I stayed in the house by myself, isolated, the enemy man would preach to me day and night. He had sermon series with me, unajua. Anasema, so previously on, so mali tuliachana jana na shetani ananiamkia tena asubuhi. It was such a rough season, honestly. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. That delay season for me, and it didn't last long. It was just about 6 months. Just about 6 months, and we got into January, and then there was a tour. I think Cornelius and Heather Lindsay came to Kenya at that time, and I was like, you know what? I have always been I'm very local church-minded. I think local church, I serve local church. I'm committed to the local church. That was the first event I decided I'm going to go out and actually register to serve. And I signed up to serve in the production team. Production nikakwapi, production and intercessory. So I didn't know much about production because I don't know these technical things. But then they looked at me, unajua nika auditions intercessory. Sema Rico, saka rebe keke. And like, intercessory. Wakanieka kwa backstage. And they put me in the backstage. And I was interacting now with Akina Cornelius and Kina Heather. Not interacting with now we're boys, but unajua unapita tu na wao in the corridors to like, shh, brush shoulders. You're like, hey, what God can do, no man can do. So for me, that was the beginning of a new season. That was the end of that season of delay because I felt like I had an opportunity to feel like what ministry is like. It was just a 2-day thing. It was at Sitam Valley Road, and I went there diligently. I woke up early, every day, drove all the way there on mafuta ya kuomba, drove all the way there and just would get there early before everybody else. And my assignment was intercessory. And me, to pray, love to do it. And I would pray kilometrics. That's how I pray. Unatoka hapa, unaenda hivi. Vector tu, ukitwanga tu ndimi. Wakiingia asubuhi, wakiingia na maprotocol, wanakupata tu uko pale. Just your lips are moving, praying in the manner of Hannah of old. You know, just moving around. This guy, this anointed man. But after that is when now that transition came. But my season of delay, about half a year, I don't think I handled it well. And I think what I would do different if I would go back to it now is just to know that just that hiyo kukaa tu, the knowledge or the consciousness that where I am, God has me here. You know, God has me here. I am actually in pursuit of God's will. I don't know not everything is falling into place. I don't even know how it's supposed to fall into place. But if I feel like if I had that consciousness at that time, it would make it so much easier. It would maybe I would have gotten into full-time faster and earlier. Juu singekuwa nako ka half a year kujificha kwa nyumba, just to assume or to make it look like I have something going to the other people, even though I have nothing going. And it was the same people that actually now invited me much later into having something actually going on. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let's appreciate the man of God. Nyambu.
I think delay for me comes within the seasons that things were not working out for me. Like when I came back from studying music and I'm trying to do music, it's not working out. Or when I left China and now I'm supposed to look for a job to be a teacher and I have this makeup thing that I'm doing and I'm looking for clients. That's a season of delay. And even when I used to look for clients, my sister was my first client, Uku, Kenya. And I used to post her pictures almost every day. Natuma hii angle. Kesho natuma hii angle. Kesho kutwa, there's a quote, so just to keep the page running. But I don't have clients. There's a delay in there. And I think in a season of delay for me, I have learned to not give up and also count my blessing, like look back and be like, let me not complain. Unaona kwenye nimetoka haki. Nimetoka mbali. So I've taught myself that in a season of delay or when things are not working out, to count my blessings. And especially for entrepreneurs, I know like there's a way the devil just captures your mind. Kama vitu haziwork, my friend. And when people tell you ati ukitoka full time, ati you'll be more free, let me tell you, entrepreneurs work day and night. It's a lie, it's a scam. We work day and night, and if there is a delay, like your mind is just moving, you have headaches. So I've learned sometimes I'll just stop myself and tell myself, Nyambura, count your blessings. And also there is a verse that Philippians 4 verse 8, fix your thoughts on what is true and good and right. Think about things that are pure and lovely and dwell on the fine good things in others. So I've learned to fix my thoughts on things that are good, that have worked for me in the past. When I came back and I didn't even know what to call myself then. Today I call myself a PMU artist and a trainer. By then, I used to tell people nafanyanga brows. So for the older generation, at my age, I'm 40 by the way. At my age, anakuliza, what do you do? Nafanyanga brows. America, China, brows. Unafanya nini kwa brows? Like they wouldn't understand and they just had this look of, what a disappointment, what a shame. Yeah. And every time I'd look at their faces, I'm just like, some part of me feels I've let my folks down, I've let myself down because people are not seeing me for maybe the work I do. Iyo time nikiwaambia nafanyanga tu brows, they're just like, ay. So I used to go through those seasons and I used to be so down, but when I used to go back to my work and I'm so motivated to work every day. And I always tell myself never to get used to the talents God has given me. He gave the story of the guys, the master who gave the talents, putting your talents to use. But for me, I always tell myself not to get used to my art, such that I'm so used, client akikuja, nataka kumharakisha. I always want to give it, the much I've learned, I want to give it my very best. If that means taking longer, I'm going to take longer because I don't want to abuse what God has placed in my hands. So I never want to get used to the gift that God has given me such that now, you know, I'm a pro, I can do things faster, I can get in clients faster and get more money. I always tell God, let me never get used to these hands whatever gift you placed in my hands. And in my season of delay, kama hakuna clients, mimi, I'm usually learning. Nitaenda online, free courses. I'm like, I'm not wasting time with this gift. Whether they are clients or not, I'm going to perfect this gift each and every day. Yeah, God bless you.
Fantastic. Let's appreciate her. Because I can see we're running out of time, I'm going to give a chance for 3 questions or 4. and then we'll hear their parting shots. So let me have, if there's any question, you could raise your hand, and then somebody will get to you with a mic. Is there any question? Pastor Wanjala is ready to get to you with a microphone that he shall get. Right? Anybody with a question? There's a question there. Wanjizi.
My name is Peter, and this goes to any or all of you. Like in your difficult moments when you're navigating through challenges and the unsure moments in your life, apart maybe from the consolation in your heart, like and knowing the word of God, do you reach out to external source? And because it is different, it hits different to different people, and how should we also handle it? Should we continue waiting, or should we keep doing what we are doing, or should we keep locking ourselves in the door? In the case of Pastor Boashi, thank you.
Right, open to all. Yeah.
Is that first?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how I handled it is, of course, you have to pray about it, but I know that is very hard at that time. Because at that time, unazushia to God, like 24/7. Like, when you waste, you know. But another thing that I did at that time is I was very close with my pastor, Pastor George. So we used to link up with him because you're not so busy. You know, also in your hard times, sometimes all you have is time, eh? It's a fact, you know, like mseza kukol mwende Zimbabwe asubuhi uko like niko hata hapa kwa stage, eh? So I'd spent so much time with my Pastor George. At that time, he was still at Deliverance Church, Donholm. So like every Wednesday, you just find me there, man. And at that time, Pasi is so positive. He's always like, Ben, you're one of the biggest artists in this country. I'm like, hata unajua hiyo ni jokes. Hata unajua makes sense, you know. But he was always so positive, you know. Like it was like, you need to continue doing this. You need to continue pushing. You can't give up, man, you know. So it was like therapy. Every Wednesday I was with Pastor George and we were just talking about anything. So if he goes for missions where atakaliti wasubuhi, I know I'm free. So I'll just follow him. We just spend time together. Also, it's also a thing, like also my fellow squad was also struggling at that time, you know, only. Some of us were a bit ahead, like, Modishot Baba were doing well, you know. But the rest of us, like, you encourage one another because you all can't be cast. As in, surely, what are the odds? What's the probability that all three of you have been cast? No, so if all of you are struggling, then maybe it's just a thing for that age group, you know? So if you surround yourself with the right, find a community, man. I don't know how Pasi did it, but staying alone is a bit crazy. It might also push you to resent God. It might also push you to hate church. Because now you start realizing, let's say, for example, you are playing drums. You start realizing, but the church never paid me. All those years I gave them. And you start becoming an anti-church crusader. You know, you start hating on church so much. And you start saying things like, oh, that church they even bought another land up where Farmer's Choice. Mimi hata through 20K, you know. So sometimes when you also stay alone, the devil starts whispering. You see the sermon series, you know, it starts whispering stuff to you. So get the right people. So also don't spend time with people who are putting you down 24/7. You know, seasons are just different for everybody. Some people, God opens their doors early. Others, it takes longer. In fact, the ones he has special assignments for them, most probably he's the one he just takes them through longer routes. So community, mentorship, just the right people around you.
Fantastic. Is there anybody who wants to add? Chonja. Next question. Behind you, Angela. Okay. Yeah.
I'm Mark, by the way. I know a lot of you know me. So my question is, you've all had your fair share of hard times. What's the promise that you made to yourself and to God when you're at your lowest? And I need the three of you to answer.
The three of you to answer. The promise you made yourself. Let me give you a minute to think about that one, right? The promise you made to yourself and to God, and from all three of you, right? Let's pick the other question to somewhere here. Mhm.
My name is Felix. Do you still, okay, when you fall into those hard times, even today, do those hard times, those delay seasons you had before, do they like help you to motivate yourself to not just give up?
All right. Mnashika hizo maswali. The second question, now that, because hard times don't end, Bishop Jimmy likes to say, you're either in a storm, entering a storm, or coming out of a storm, right? So storms are consistent. So how have your former delays, how does that help? How does DC help with that, right? Any other question? One last question. We have Mokohe.
Hi. My question is to Pastor Brian. In that time when you were closed up for those 6 months and you're having this series with the devil, like, what kept you going? Because let me tell you, when the devil is talking to you, honestly, it's God you're still here, because those questions be taking you so down. So nini ilikusukuma hizo miezi 6? Uliovercome, ulitokaje kwa hiyo giza?
All right, fantastic. So those are the questions. Is there any last person who's burning? Is that Chitala? Hey, God. Give Chitala the mic. Hiyo swali ya Chitala lazima iulizwe. All right, sure.
My question is to everyone. So, during those hard moments, you guys were with your family. How did it affect your relationship with your family members, like parents, siblings, and everything?
All right, and then Chitala finally.
My question is, during that time when you are still navigating, let's say, for example, when the devil is still talking to you, let's say he's talking to you really nice, and you find a way to navigate, and you find a way in the secular world. Will you guys have taken it when you are in your lowest points?
I like that. Ndio maana swali ya Chitala lazima ingeulizwa. Fantastic. All right, so we are going to start. Let's start with the promise you made to yourself and to God. Nyambu.
I would lie if I say I sat down one day and said, God, I make this promise to you. But I always have a prayer, never to misuse the gift God has given me, or never to have pride out of it, because he could as well give it to somebody else. So I always pray that anytime I feel like, nika nimefika, I'm like, Nyambura, shuka, because this is just something God has given you. And sometimes gifts are for seasons, by the way. I always say, sometimes utaona mtu ni musician big, then probably they become a pastor or serve in the church, and then you're like, huyu hata aliacha kuimba. But they've gone to another season. So once God wanted them to worship, lead praise and worshiping for that season, and then now there's something else. And even with the just workplace outside there, I always say sometimes things are for seasons. So my prayer, just like I said, I always tell God, niwezeshe tu, nisiwai develop a big head, and to just make full use of the talents that you have given me.
Fantastic, Ben.
Yeah, mine was not, I would leave God. That was a hard one, In fact, I made this prayer so in this story, I've not even mentioned that there was a time period where my sister got cancer and we lost her, It was crazy. It was the darkest point of my life. At that point, all I was seeing in my life was just darkness. Like, there was nothing in the future, nothing, And I remember when I held her body at Kenyatta, I was just like, Jesus, if this is what you've decided, then glory to you. I still won't leave you if you're trying to push me away from you. So that was a prayer that I made to God, and I pray that I fulfill it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Mosh.
I also wouldn't say I have made any promises. I really haven't. I don't think I have, yeah? Because I think my understanding, just like Nyambura mentioned, is that some of these things are very, very seasonal, yeah? So with whatever it is that God has given, I remember a devotional I was reading in the morning, and the lady was saying she's been playing the guitar and leading worship for the last 40 years. And then recently, whenever she's playing, she plays with a lot of pain because she's developed arthritis in her thumb. And something she's been doing for the last 40 years, now she can no longer do it. And she makes fun of it now. She's preparing for, this is one of the first of many losses that will continue to come as she continues to grow older. And as I thought about it, as I read it in the morning, I thought to myself, wow, may God help me to know that when I'm going through the seasons, when I have what I have, that I will do everything in my power, will be such a great steward of it. And then when that season comes to an end and now I'm waiting for God to usher me into another one, I'll not be there promising that God, for the rest of my life, as long as I'm breathing or whatever, because I also know myself, yeah? Sometimes nachoka tu naboeka tu kukatikati and like I know that's what I said, but hata unanijua when to uliniomba. So I can't say I've made any promises. I just will just try to trust that this same hand that has brought me here, I like to say that this far Ebenezer and the remaining journey Ebenezer still. Yeah.
Fantastic. Perhaps back still on you, we have Margaret's question. The 6 months, how?
I also can't, let me just be honest, and it's not being lazy in the answer. It's just, let me just quote the words because that is a true reality of this story. If the Lord had not been on my side, the enemy would truly have devoured me whole. Because in those seasons when I sat, and I'm also an overthinker, yeah? So I'll sit down and I'll listen. I'm like, by the way, akikuja kuniletea jana previously, like, where were we, by the way? Yeah, enyewe. And he points out all the things that are wrong and all the things that are not right with you and why you might be in this season of delay and why this is happening. And you see, at that time, to put it together with what I've already said previously, is that I ran away from people, which is what I would do different right now if I were to go through that season of delay. I would surround myself, like Ben is saying, I would surround myself with some God community, some born-again someone, so people that are also pursuing God just like I'm trying to pursue God. Because hao wataweza kukuambia. Because the same people that I was running away were the same people that God used to bring me into ministry. Pastor David Kibera, one of our pastors, love him with all my heart. Pastor Kibera was instrumental to me saying yes to full-time ministry here in Zima. Because I started to share him little by little. After that season of about 5-6 months, I just started to open up, just tell him, "Bade niko tu kwa nyumba. If you want something done, just call me." He was among the first people that I told niko kwa nyumba. All along they knew I was working. Nipigie uko wapi? Juu pia uko kwa nyumba, you don't want to, utaki kuchafua nguo safi, unachafua nguo for just a 20-minute drive ukuja hapa nikae 1 hour nifanye kazi hapa alafu nirudi kwa nyumba. Nimeoga juu ya 20 minutes alafu nirudi. Na siishi hapa around shuko ushago. So I'll just stay in the house. In those seasons as the enemy came to speak and to speak and to tell me, I can't say there's something that I did, because even in those moments, I don't think I would say, I understood myself so much, I bulked up with the word. True, I had really fire devotions. But there are days to this day, I sit back and I look at that season and the progress that I made with the Lord in the place of prayer. Some of the practices I have today, I started to practice at that time because I realized, niko na time. So I can pray. Kumbe naweza nikaomba zaidi ya dakika 10. Kumbe naweza nika twanga ndimi dakika kadhaa. Unajua, those things I started to do at that time, yeah. But I can't say it was because of that that the devil did not. I was able to shoot the enemy. Just the devil has come. Ameingia hivi. The Lord is now raising a standard. Come on, here's somebody. No, it truly is. If the Lord had not been on my side, I don't know how. I honestly don't know how I made it to the, to quote the words of the song, I made it through and I don't know how I did it. But there's something beautiful about just releasing yourself into the hands of the master. There's just something beautiful about it. So you rise and you fall right there in those hands, like David says, inuka na uanguke tu uko ndani uko tu, jiachilie tu kwa Mungu. Ujue, when you're having the bad days, I'm having the bad days inside of God, okay? You guys just leave me alone. When I'm having the good days, I'm having them inside of God, okay? Just whether I am on top or in the bottom, I am inside of God. I think that would be it. Yeah.
Fantastic. I want that to flow into Chitala's question about how lucrative the secular solutions seem and how you dealt with that. Perhaps Ben, you could tell us.
Why are you saying Oh, I think especially for creatives, musicians, podcasters, content creators, there's normally, that line is normally so thin. It's so thin for us. You know, it's once in a while you'll be called for an event. Like one time we were promoting an application, and then now this application, they decide they're going to bring this huge Nigerian artist, and now part of the contract is you have to go there, you know. So it's normally very tricky for us. But yes, I did get, in fact, those times I remember getting so many alcoholic deals to promote them, and you turn them down and you're broke. You're like, you know what, God, I'm doing this for you. And I've turned down so many of them, and it's normally very painful at that time. I can't even tell you that it's easy at that time. And it's very easy to justify and just say, you know, Jesus ali change water into wine. Unajua? Haikuwa passion. You can justify, you can get backups for these things, you know. But there's normally a bigger damage to that move, because the people who look up to you, there's a way when you do some things, they might even push it beyond limits, and maybe you're the one who introduced them, to introduce that concept to them. So we did turn down those opportunities. There's so many times I wanted to be a secular artist. You know, I'm like, maze God, no. Maze tukienda secular tutakuchukua mademu wangapi, like tutakuwa na wareshi hivi kuchizi. Alafu, you know, when you're in secular, there are no boundaries, because you can just get somebody, you can get a very hot girl to sponsor your life. People have done that so many times. Same mlikuwa na yetu last week. Alafu next week akona Prado, surely hiyo si shares. You know, I've been in so many of those situations, you know, like you're with just somebody this week, they get into some wash stuff, and it's so popular nowadays, you know, like, you know, people might think these are far-fetched stuff, it's in the Narcos, Pablo Escobar, Colombia. It's so close to you guys, you know, but you have everything that you do. Remember, it will have to ask, it will have to demand for something. So if all God is demanding is your heart and your loyalty, then I feel like that's a small price to pay. Because on the flip side is that all these other things that you might do, they will still ask for something. And I've seen some of my friends also pay dearly with their character, with their behaviors, or it changes you, you know. So we've gotten those opportunities, but sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and say, you know what, it's not worth it. But let me tell you, God repays. And then how God repays, with joy, with satisfaction. He gives you can't compare what the devil is giving you and what God is giving you. And in fact, when you notice that the offer on your life is a bit bigger, because sometimes the devil, because he's been around for so long, he can sense people who have greatness in them. Because I mean, alikuwa tazana kina Abraham, pia wewe anaza nini 1-2-1-2. So when you start feeling like you're getting so many of those offers, then just know that the inverse of what God has prepared for you is just mighty, and it will come with so much peace and just a good life, you know? Yeah.
Fantastic. Let's have Nyambura talk to us about how the delays affected, if at all, it affected your relationships with your friends, with your family, and how you navigated that.
I think I would speak on the part of my immediate family, like being in limbo of trying to figure out this girl, like ajui chenye anataka, mara community development, sasa anatuambia music, sasa ako China. I think for them, they've gone through a season of feeling this girl does not know what she wants to do. And, you know, miaka tu inaendelea, and they feel we've invested so much. I would say that on the part of my dad. Since I guess, you know, he has to come up with the school fees. At some point he felt, man, we've paid so much into your education, but it looks like you haven't figured it out yet. And I think that takes them through a season of feeling, did we do it right? Did we raise them right? But for me, fortunately, now that things worked out, they look back, they're like, you know what? She turned out fine. But I will quote one thing my mom said when I was in China during my low season. She told me about, how God takes you through seasons. And I would say, some people may look at my life and feel, I wasted community development, I wasted the music, I wasted the Chinese. But trust me, I can tell you, to me, nothing was wasted. I can tell you how I use each and everything that I learned in my life right now, or how each of those areas apply in my life right now. And in my low season in China, my mom called me and she told me, Nyambura, God may not have taken you to China for what you're learning. He could have taken you there for something else that you're going to see later. And now I look back, I'm like, this lady was right, And I think when we look at delays in terms of even family, when you have support around yourself, I think that's the best season. And if you don't have people who support you, go seek out where they are. When I came back, of course, I need a bed for clients. I didn't have money. I had nothing. My mom, out of her pocket, tukaenda na huku sijui Mwihoko to get a second-hand bed that was so rusted, huku kwa miguu. Clients used to come, and the one who sold it to me akaniambia, itaangusha client very soon. So, chunga. I went home, painted it so that client wasione, And now I look back, of course that was another season of delay for me, but when I look at how things worked out because I had, support around me, I just thank God. Same thing to finessing my skills. When I came back here, of course now I look back at my initial work and I'm like, it was horrible. I didn't have so much training as I have right now. And it took me a year to save up money so that I can fly out of the country to go get training. And at the end of that year, when I looked at, because I'm also stubborn in terms of what I want. If I want to achieve this, this is what I want. So the trainings I had lined up, nikaangalia pesa haitoshi, and I told my dad, you know what, wacha training ikae, pesa haitoshi. And he looked at me and said, Nyambura, you have saved up for a year. You're going for this training. Come with me. So having a support system around you, whether it's family or not, if you don't have them around you, go seek them. Get people who will tell you when you're looking down, they'll tell you, head high, we are going. Yeah.
Right. So if you could phrase all this into a sentence, I'll hear from all of you. Just a sentence. Parting shot. A sentence, man of God. Utaweza. Kuna introduction, body na conclusion.
Your sentence inaweza kuwa kama paragraph bila punctuation, bila full stop. Anyway, I think all said and done, I like to think that there is a God who has put us together, that we're not here by happenstance, and if you just rely on him, he knows exactly where he's taking you, because he knows why he put you here. Anajua reason yenye amekutengeneza, anajua mahali anakupeleka, wacha kung'ang'ana. Wewe fuata Mungu akikuongoza. Just, he says we move, we move. He says this is the way, walk in it. You walk in it because you can also rely on him to actually give you the grace to follow in the direction that he's leading. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. All right. Ben.
I'd finish by saying that he who started a good work in you is faithful to see it to completion. And God is not a man to lie. He's not a son of man to confess. Amen.
Nyambura.
What is in your hand? That's the question I'd ask each and everybody. What is in your hand? There's something you can do with whatever it is in your hand. However big it is, however small you feel that it is, there is something that you can do with that which God has placed in your hand.
Let's appreciate my amazing panel. Kuna watu hata mikono zao hazijasonga. Let's appreciate this amazing panel. All right, we're so excited for those who have been tuning in. We're so glad that you could join our Harvest Conversations. Until we meet again, you are irrevocably blessed and God can be trusted. Bye. All right.